Today, we, as most of the Parsha, is a review of the temple articles and priestly, the Kohen garments. Today we did the Kohen garments, and we mentioned that they made them. They made them by God's command out of the five materials: turquoise, purple, red, and linen, mixed with each one mixed with gold and no mix, and then woven together. Now, typically, we know there's a sin called shatnez. You can't mix wool and linen, but here we say there's a bunch of wool and linen mixed together. This was an exception to the rule. The priestly garments were allowed to be made into shatnez. They had to be made into shatnez. Why? There's two reasons. Why is shatnez so forbidden? So obviously we know it's one of the mitzvahs that are decrees. They're super rational, but there is some logic given to them. One is given by Rabbeinu Bechaya, one is that linen represents harmful influences, while wool represents positive influences. As we see that wool was the offering of Abel, of Hevel, and flax he gave a sheep, Hevel, and Cain gave flax. That was the vegetables he gave. So we keep it separate. It's symbolic. It represents positive, negative. Keep it separate. The other is that while neither linen or wool are intrinsically harmful, their mixture is. Sort of like milk and meat, right? Okay. Now, the first reason affirms the normal way we lead our lives. Avoid evil and do good. From a deeper perspective, however, evil can, in many cases, be this expression of, we said, high level of holiness that has fallen has a tragic fall and then becoming evil. Like all these, comic book villain origin stories, great promise and then they fall. Even from this perspective, linen should not normally be mixed with wool, since what matters is how is an entity expressed in this world. How do you deal with it? So the fact that something sinful has a very high source in spirituality, and it's just it fell due to the whole, creation and whatever reason it fell into being in practicality, the way we interact with it, as something harmful to stay away from. So we don't say, oh, this thing, this pig, it comes from a very high source. That's why it's depicted in a very lowly way because it's such a high source, it falls so far. It's okay, it's there for what? I should go eat it? No. However, and the same thing here. If you're saying that wool and linen, if linen represents something negative and wool is positive, I don't care what the source is about. I care about the way it interacts down here. And therefore, stay away, keep them apart. But in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, where there was the highest revelation of divinity possible in the world, in other words, things you can see the spiritual. We say God is revealed. We mean you can see how things have a spiritual source. That's what it means God is revealed. You see how this thing just is because it is, but it actually has a spiritual source. That's what the temple was. You could see how the sheep, it says a fire would, a spiritual fire would consume the sacrifice. What does it mean? You can see how this sheep is connected to something spiritual and high, and so on. So in other words, the source of everything in the tabernacle is kind of revealed. So the mixture of wool and flax are permitted because the flax, you're not doing flax or negative as it's depicted down here, which you have to stay away from. it's being revealed its source. Its source, we said, is a very high source. From here, we see that the ideal is to reveal divinity that's so intense that evil ceases to exist as evil. The evil manifests its source in holiness and becomes our ally rather than our opponent. This is very heavy stuff.
Good stuff.
This idea.